The air was thick with the scent of pine and ash, the kind that clung to your skin and whispered of ancient battles fought on this very soil. Lisa Harper, a 32-year-old chef from Brooklyn, blinked against the sudden darkness, her heart hammering like a drum in her chest. One moment, she'd been in her cramped apartment, perfecting a miso-glazed salmon recipe for her pop-up restaurant. The next, a blinding flash from her vintage stove, some faulty wiring she'd later had hurled her into this alien world. She stumbled forward, her sneakers sinking into damp earth, and froze. Before her sprawled a sprawling samurai encampment, its flickering torches casting jagged shadows across wooden palisades and rows of weathered tents. The year, though she didn't know it yet, was 1600, and Japan was a land of war and whispers. Lisa's breath caught as she took in the scene. Men in lacquered armor moved like ghosts through the camp, their katanas glinting under the moonlight. The air buzzed with tension-gruff voices barking orders, the clatter of metal, and somewhere, the low wail of a shamisen mourning the night. Her chef's whites, stained with soy sauce and flourdant exactly period-appropriate, and she felt like a neon sign in a sepia photograph. Her stomach growled, a reminder she hadn't eaten since breakfast. "Great," she muttered, brushing her auburn hair from her eyes. "I'm lost, starving, and dressed like a walking anachronism." She ducked behind a stack of rice sacks as a patrol marched past, their sandals crunching on the gravel path. Her mind raced. Time travel wasn't on her bingo card for 2025, but she'd seen enough sci-fi flicks to know panicking wouldn't help. She needed food, shelter, and a plan, preferably in that order. The camp smelled of boiled rice and desperation, and the soldiers' gaunt faces told her provisions were low. A chef's instincts kicked in. If there was one universal truth, it was that hungry people were easier to win over with a good meal. Lisa crept toward the heart of the camp, where a massive cauldron bubbled over a fire. A grizzled cook, his face etched with scars, stirred the pot with a wooden paddle, muttering curses in guttural Japanese. The broth looked more like dishwater than soup, and the soldiers lined up for it wore expressions of grim resignation. Lisa's nose wrinkled. She'd seen prison food with more appeal. An idea sparked. She might not speak the language fluently, but food? Food was her mother tongue. She straightened, dusted off her apron, and strode toward the cook like she owned the place. Confidence was half the battle, right? The cook Hideo, she'd later learn, looked up, his eyes narrowing at the sight of this strange woman in white. Lisa flashed her best disarming smile, the one that got her out of speeding tickets back in New York. "Hey, big guy," she said, gesturing at the pot. "Mind if I take a crack at that? I'm a wandering chef from far away." Hideo's scowl deepened, and he barked something she didn't catch. A few soldiers nearby chuckled, clearly enjoying the show. Lisa didn't need to understand the words to get the vibe. Who's this fool? Undeterred, she pointed at the cauldron, then mimed eating and gave a thumbs up. "Good food, happy soldiers. Trust me, I'm a pro." Hideo crossed his arms, skeptical but curious. Hunger had a way of lowering defenses, and the camp's morale was scraping bottom. He gestured for her to go ahead, his expression saying, "Entertain me, but don't expect miracles." Lisa rolled up her sleeves, her pulse quickening. This was her element: chaos, high stakes, and a kitchen to conquer. She rummaged through the meager supplies: rice, dried fish, some wilted greens, and a handful of wild mushrooms. Not exactly Michelin star material, but she'd worked with worse. First, she tossed the sad broth. No one protested. It was barely edible anyway. She set to work, her hands moving with the precision of a surgeon. The rice went into a fresh pot with a pinch of salt she found buried in a sack. The fish she flaked into thin strips, marinating them in a makeshift soy vinegar mix she cobbled together from fermented barley paste and sour plums. The greens she chopped fine, tossing them with crushed mushrooms for an umami kick. Her movements were a dance, fluid and deliberate, and soon a crowd gathered, drawn by the unfamiliar aromas curling through the air. "All right, folks," she said, mostly to herself. "Let's introduce sushi to the Sengoku period." She shaped the rice into bite-sized balls, topping each with a sliver of fish and a sprinkle of greens. The result wasn't Nobu level, but it looked vibrant, fresh, and downright revolutionary compared to the camp's usual slop. She grinned, holding up a piece. "I call this Brooklyn roll. Patent pending." The soldiers exchanged wary glances, but hunger won out. One brave soul, a lanky young samurai with a missing tooth, grabbed a piece and popped it in his mouth. His eyes widened and a grin split his face. He shouted something that needed no translation. "This is amazing!" The others surged forward, grabbing the Brooklyn rolls like they were gold. Laughter erupted, a sound the camp hadn't heard in weeks. Even Hideo took a bite, his scowl softening into a grudging nod. Lisa basked in the chaos, her chest swelling with pride. She'd turned a starving camp into a pop-up restaurant in under an hour. But her victory lap was cut short when a shadow fell over her. She looked up to find a towering samurai, his armor adorned with crimson tassels, staring down at her. His face was a mask of authority, and the katana at his hip promised he wasn't here for seconds. "You," he said in halting English learned, she'd later discover, from a shipwrecked Portuguese trader. "You are no ordinary cook. Who are you? And why do you bring strange food to my men?" Lisa's mouth went dry. This was no grunt. This was Lord Takeda, the warlord who ran this camp like a dictator. His eyes bored into her, sharp as his blade, and the air crackled with danger. She'd fed his men, sure, but she'd also disrupted his order, and samurai weren't exactly known for their chill. "I'm Lisa Harper," she said, forcing her voice steady. "Just a chef trying to help. Your guys were starving, and I figured good food might lift their spirits. No harm done, right?" Takeda's gaze didn't waver. "You speak boldly for a woman in a strange land. Your food is unusual, effective, but unusual." He leaned closer, his voice low. "You will prove your worth. My men fight better with full bellies, but I do not trust easily. You will work under Hideo's watch. Impress me, and you live. Fail, and..." He let the threat hang, his hand resting on his sword. Lisa swallowed hard, but nodded. "Deal. I'll make you the best damn meal you've ever had." Takeda turned and strode away, leaving her in a sea of curious faces. Hideo clapped her on the shoulder, a rare gesture of camaraderie. "You are mad," he said, his English broken but warm. "But mad is good. Come, we cook." As the camp settled into a rare moment of peace, Lisa's mind raced. She'd bought herself time, but she was on thin ice. She needed to keep innovating, to blend her modern culinary tricks with what this era offered. Sushi was a hit, but she'd need more than raw fish to survive Takeda's scrutiny. And then there was the bigger question. How the hell did she get here? and how could she get back? That night, as she lay on a straw mat in a cramped tent, the camp's sounds lulling her to sleep, clinking armor, distant laughter, the crackle of fire streamed of Brooklyn. Her tiny apartment, her pop-up restaurant, her life. But when she woke to the dawn's light and the smell of Hideo's breakfast gruel, reality hit. This was her world now, at least until she found a way out. And if she was stuck here, she'd make it her kitchen. The next morning, Hideo greeted her with a rare smile. Your Brooklyn rollmen talk of nothing else. They call you Fire Chef. You cook today? Lisa grinned, tying on her apron. Oh, I'm just getting started. Let's blow their minds. As she and Hideo chopped vegetables and planned the day's menu, a spark of hope flared in her chest. She was a chef, a creator, a survivor. Samurai or not, this camp was about to learn what a New Yorker could do with a knife and a dream. But in the back of her mind, a clock ticked. Takeda's warning echoed, and somewhere, in the shadows of this ancient land, a mystery waited away home, or a trap that could end her story before it began. The sun hung low over the samurai encampment, painting the sky in hues of amber and blood. Lisa Harper, the Brooklyn chef who'd tumbled through time to 1,600 Japan, stood elbow deep in a pile of foraged herbs, her apron streaked with dirt and fish oil. The air buzzed with the clatter of armor and the shouts of drilling soldiers, but her world was the makeshift kitchenna rickety table, a smoky fire, and Hideo, the grizzled camp cook who'd gone from skeptic to ally in a single night. Her Brooklyn role had won the soldiers' hearts, but Lord Takeda's warning still chilled her. Impress him or face his blade. Today, she'd need to push her culinary game further, and that meant convincing Hideo to step out of his comfort zone. Lisa wiped sweat from her brow, her auburn hair sticking to her neck in the humid morning. Hideo, she said, tossing him a bundle of wild scallions, we're not just feeding these guys. We're staging a revolution. Your rice porridge? It's history. We're going full fusion think samurai meets New York deli. Hideo raised a bushy eyebrow, his scarred hands pausing over a bamboo cutting board. His English, pieced together from traders and instinct, was rough but sharp. Fusion? You speak nonsense, Fire Chef. Men want rice, simple, safe. He gestured at the camp, where soldiers, sparred with bamboo staffs, their faces etched with hunger and fatigue. They fight soon, no time for your deli. Lisa grinned, undeterred. She'd faced tougher crowds at Williamsburg food festivals. Trust me, Hideo. Simple's fine, but memorable wins wars. We'll make something so good, Takeda'll be begging for seconds. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Picture this. Rice balls stuffed with smoked fish, wrapped in nori, with a kick of pickled radish. We'll call it the Manhattan Bomb. Blow their minds, boost morale. Hideo snorted, but his eyes gleamed with curiosity. He was a man of tradition, but Lisa's confidence was infectious, like a spice he couldn't name. You are mad, he said, echoing his words from yesterday. But mad is interesting. Show me. The morning dissolved into a whirlwind of experimentation. Lisa scoured the camp's meager stores, her chef's instincts turning scraps into gold. She found dried seaweed, perfect for wrapping, and a stash of fermented soybeans that could double as a proto-miso. The fish, caught from a nearby river, was tougher than she'd like, but she smoked it over pine branches, infusing it with a woodsy depth that made her mouth water. Hideo watched, half amused, half awestruck, as she worked her magic. When she caught him sneaking a taste of her marinade, she winked. "Told you, old man, I'm trouble." Their banter drew a crowd. Soldiers, curious and hungry, lingered near the fire, their sparring forgotten. One, the gap-toothed samurai who'd first tried her sushi, called out, "Fire Chef, more Brooklyn magic." The nickname had stuck, and Lisa leaned into it, tossing him a Manhattan bomb with a flourish. He caught it, took a bite, and let out a whoop that echoed across the camp. The others surged forward, and soon the air was alive with laughter and the crunch of nori. But not everyone was charmed. A shadow loomed as Kenta, Takeda's second in command, pushed through the crowd. His armor clinked with menace, and his narrow eyes fixed on Lisa like a hawk on a mouse. "You," he barked, his English clipped and cold, "you distract my men. They eat your strange food and forget their duty. Lord Takeda indulges you, but I do not." Lisa's pulse quickened, but she held her ground, brushing flour from her hands. "With respect, sir, your men are eating better than they have in weeks. Happy soldiers fight harder. You want them sharp for battle, don't you?" Kenta's lip curled. "You speak as if you know war. You are a woman, a foreigner, a cook. Know your place." He stepped closer, his hand hovering near his katana. "Takeda may spare you, but cross me, and I will not." The crowd fell silent, the air thick with tension. Hideo stiffened, his hand tightening on his knife, but Lisa shot him a look. "Stand down." She'd dealt with egos before, from snooty critics to drunk patrons. Kenta wanted dominance, not reason. She lowered her eyes, feigning submission, but her voice was steel. "Understood, sir. I'll keep the food coming. No trouble here." Kenta grunted, satisfied, and stalked off. The soldiers exhaled, and Hideo muttered, "He is a snake. Watch him, Fire Chef." Lisa nodded, her mind racing. Kenta was a problem, but she had bigger fish to fry, literally. She and Hideo doubled down, perfecting the Manhattan bomb and adding a side of quick pickled radish that popped with tangy heat. By midday, the camp was buzzing. The soldiers' spirits visibly lifted. Even Takeda, watching from his command tent, gave a curt nod of approval. But the real test came at dusk. As Lisa and Hideo cleaned their station, a messenger arrived, his face pale with urgency. "Fire Chef," he gasped, bowing low. "Lord Takeda summons you. Now." Lisa's stomach dropped. She exchanged a glance with Hideo, who looked as uneasy as she felt. "Any idea what this is about?" she whispered as they followed the messenger through the torchlit camp. Hideo shook his head. "Takeda does not summon lightly. Be careful, Lisa." The Warlords' tent was a fortress of silk and wood, its interior lit by flickering lanterns. Takeda sat on a low dais, his armor gleaming like obsidian. Kenta stood at his side, his smirk barely concealed. Lisa bowed, her heart pounding. "You wanted to see me, my lord?" Takeda's voice was a low rumble. "Your food strengthens my men. This is good, but strength alone is not enough. The shogun himself arrives in 2 days to inspect this camp. He expects a feast worthy of his rank. You will prepare it." Lisa blinked, her mind reeling. A feast? For a shogun? In 1600, with nothing but rice and river fish? She opened her mouth to protest, but Takeda's next words silenced her. "Fail," he said, his eyes cold as winter, "and your head will roll. Succeed, and you will have my favor. 2 days, Fire Chef, begin." The tent seemed to close in around her. 2 days to create a banquet that could save or end her life. Kenta's smirk widened, and she knew he'd relish her failure. She bowed again, her voice steady despite the panic clawing at her chest. "I won't disappoint you, my lord." As she and Hideo left the tent, the weight of the task settled on her shoulders. 2 days, she muttered, rubbing her temples. "We've got no meat, no spices, no equipment. This is insane." Hideo clapped her shoulder, his grin surprisingly fierce. "Insane is your strength, Fire Chef. We make this feast together." The next day was a blur of frantic preparation. Lisa and Hideo scoured the camp and nearby forest, hunting for anything edible. They found wild plums, bitter but usable, and a patch of burdock root that could be roasted for depth. Lisa's modern palate clashed with Hideo's traditional one, sparking heated debates over every dish. "We need bold," she'd argue, waving a handful of herbs. "Subtle," he'd counter, brandishing his knife. But their friction fueled creativity, and by nightfall, they'd sketched a menu: miso-glazed fish, nori-wrapped rice cakes, roasted root vegetables, and a dessert of plum paste rolled in crushed nut-nod to a Brooklyn candy shop. The soldiers, sensing the stakes, rallied around them. The gap-toothed samurai, who Lisa now knew as Jiro, brought her a basket of river shrimp, his grin wide. "For Fire Chef," he said, bowing. Others offered small treasures, a jar of fermented beans, a bundle of dried kelp. Their faith in her was a lifeline, but it also tightened the knot in her stomach. She couldn't let them down. As the second day dawned, disaster struck. Kenta, true to his snake-like nature, had sabotaged their supplies. Half their fish had been accidentally spoiled, and their precious seaweed was missing. Lisa's temper flared, but Hideo grabbed her arm. "No time for anger. We adapt." Adapt they did. Lisa improvised, using crushed burdock leaves as a wrap and stretching their remaining fish with minced mushrooms. The menu shrank, but each dish grew bolder, more refined. She worked through the night, her hands blistered, her eyes burning, Hideo at her side. Their partnership, forged in fire, felt like something deeper, a bond that transcended time. By the time the Shogun's banners appeared on the horizon, the feast was ready. Lisa stood at the entrance to the banquet tent, her chef's whites swapped for a borrowed kimono that hugged her curves in a way that felt both foreign and fierce. The dishes gleamed under torchlight, their aromas weaving a spell over the gathered samurai. Takeda entered first, his expression unreadable. Kenta followed, his eyes glinting with malice. Then came the Shogun, a wiry man with a gaze that could cut glass. The meal began in silence, each bite a verdict. Lisa's heart thudded as the Shogun tasted her miso-glazed fish. He paused, his chopsticks hovering, then took another bite. A murmur rippled through the tent. Takeda's eyes flicked to her, a spark of approval in their depths. Kenta's smirk faltered. When the Shogun spoke, his voice was soft but commanding. "This food, it is unlike any I have tasted, bold, yet balanced, foreign, yet of this land." He turned to Lisa, his gaze piercing. "You are no mere cook. Who are you?" Lisa bowed, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her veins. "Just a chef, my lord, trying to make people happy, one plate at a time." The Shogun laughed, a rare sound that broke the tension like a thunderclap. "You have my favor, Fire Chef. Takeda, keep this one close." The tent erupted in cheers, the soldiers pounding their fists on the tables. Hideo squeezed her shoulder. his grin wide enough to rival Jiro's. Even Takeda nodded, a rare gesture of respect. Kenta slipped away, his plans in ruins, but Lisa knew he'd be back. Snakes always were. As the night wound down, Lisa stepped outside, the cool air a balm on her flushed skin. The camp glowed under the stars, alive with laughter and song. She'd done it, survived, thrived, and turned a war camp into her stage. But as she gazed at the horizon, a figure approached, an old monk, his robes tattered, his eyes glinting with secrets. "Fire, chef," he said, his voice a whisper on the wind. "Your food binds hearts, but your path is not yet done. A door awaits a door through time. Find it, or remain forever." Lisa's breath caught, her triumph tinged with unease. A way home, or a trap? She didn't know, but as the monk vanished into the night, one thing was certain. Her adventure was far from over. The samurai encampment pulsed with life under a bruised violet sky, the air heavy with the scent of cedar smoke and anticipation. Lisa Harper, the Brooklyn chef who tumbled through time to 1600 Japan, stood at the edge of the camp, her heart a drumbeat of dread and defiance. The shogun's arrival loomed like a storm, and Lord Takeda's command echoed in her mind. Prepare a feast to impress the most powerful man in Japan, or lose her head. 2 days. That was all she had, to transform the camp's meager rations into a banquet fit for a warlord's dreams. Her kimono, a borrowed silk that clung to her curves like a lover's whisper, felt both empowering and alien. She was no samurai, but tonight, she'd wield her knife like a katana. Lisa's victory over the camp's hunger, with her Manhattan bomb, and the shogun's initial tasting, had earned her Takeda's grudging respect and the soldiers' adoration. But the monk's cryptic words from the night before, a door through time, gnawed at her. Was it a way back to Brooklyn, or a trap woven by this strange, violent world? She pushed the thought aside. Survival came first, and that meant conquering the kitchen. She found Hideo at their makeshift cooking station, his scarred hands deftly scaling fish. The grizzled cook had become her anchor, his gruff warmth a lifeline in this chaos. "Fire, chef," he greeted, his broken English laced with a grin. "Shogun comes. You ready?" Lisa tied her apron over the kimono, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun. "Ready? I'm about to turn this camp into a Michelin star pop-up, but Hideo, we're on a clock. Kenta's still out there, and I don't trust him not to sabotage us again." Hideo's eyes darkened. "Kenta is a shadow. He waits for you to fall, but we will not." He handed her a bamboo basket of river shrimp, their shells glinting like tiny jewels. "Jiro found these. For you." Lisa's chest warmed at the mention of the gap-toothed samurai who'd become her biggest fan. The camp had rallied behind her, soldiers slipping her foraged herbs and precious scraps of dried kelp. Their faith was a double-edged, sword uplifting, but heavy with expectation. She couldn't fail them, not when their spirits hung by a thread. The first day was a sprint. Lisa and Hideo worked in a fevered dance, their station a whirlwind of chopping, simmering, and tasting. The menu took shape: delicate shrimp dumplings steamed in bamboo leaves, rice cakes glazed with a sweet-sour plum reduction, and a centerpiece of whole roasted fish, its skin crisped over pine embers and stuffed with wild herbs. Lisa's modern flair clashed with Hideo's traditional restraint, their debates sparking like flint. "More heat," she'd insist, tossing in crushed, chili-like berries she'd found in the forest. "Balance," Hideo would counter, his knife flashing as he carved paper-thin radish slices. Their tension was electric, a partnership teetering on the edge of something deeper. But Kenta's shadow loomed. Midday, Lisa noticed their stock of firewood dwindling faster than it should. A quick investigation revealed slashed ropes and scattered logs, a deliberate act. She caught a glimpse of Kenta's crimson tassels vanishing around a tent, his smirk a silent taunt. "That snake," she hissed, her fists clenching. Hideo grabbed her arm, his voice low. "No confrontation? We rebuild. Focus." They scavenged branches from the forest, Lisa's anger fueling her strength as she hauled wood back to camp. The soldiers, sensing trouble, doubled their efforts, Jiro and his comrades forming a quiet guard around the kitchen. Their loyalty was a shield, but Lisa knew Kenta wouldn't stop. He wanted her gone, her foreign ways a threat to his rigid world. As night fell, a new crisis erupted. The shogun's advance scouts arrived, announcing his retinue was larger than expected, 50 men, not 20. The menu, already stretched thin, wouldn't feed them all. Lisa's stomach churned. "We're screwed," she muttered, rubbing her temples. Hideo, ever calm, pointed to a sack of millet they'd overlooked. "We stretch. You are fire chef. Create." Her mind raced, and an idea sparked. "Okay, we go big. A street food vibe, small plates, high impact. We'll make tempura." She'd seen crude frying techniques in the camp. With some tweaks, she could batter and fry vegetables and shrimp into golden, crispy bites. It was a risk. Tempura wasn't a thing yet in 1600, but if it worked, it could steal the show. The second day was a crucible. Lisa and Hideo worked through dawn, their hands blistered, their voices hoarse. She perfected a batter from millet flour and river water, light and crisp, while Hideo crafted dipping sauces from fermented beans and plum juice. The tempura station became a spectacle, soldiers crowding to watch Lisa dunk shrimp into bubbling oil, each piece emerging like a tiny sun. Jiro, ever her hype man, snatched one and yelped at the heat, then groaned in delight. "Fire, chef! This is heaven!" But Kenta struck again. Hours before the shogun's arrival, their oil supply vanished, replaced with a foul-smelling sludge. Lisa's temper snapped. Enough. She stormed toward Kenta's tent, Hideo and Jiro trailing her. The soldiers parted, sensing a showdown. Kenta emerged, his armor gleaming, his smile venomous. "Lost something, foreigner?" Lisa stepped into his space, her voice a low growl. "You want me gone, fine, but you're screwing over your own men. They're starving, Kenta. Help me feed them, or step aside." The camp fell silent, all eyes on them. Kenta's hand twitched toward his katana, and Lisa's heart lurched. She was no fighter, but she wouldn't back down. Jiro tensed, ready to intervene, but Hideo's calm voice cut through. "Enough, Kenta. You shame us. Fire Chef feeds the shogun. You will not stop her." Kenta's eyes flickered with rage, but the soldier's murmur support for Lisa forced his hand. He spat on the ground and stalked off, defeated for now. Jiro clapped Lisa's shoulder, his grin wide. "Fire Chef fights like samurai." With no time to celebrate, Lisa improvised. She diluted the sludge with water, straining it through cloth to salvage enough oil. The tempura would be leaner, but it would work. As the shogun's banners crested the hill, the banquet tent was ready, tables laden with steaming dumplings, glistening rice cakes, roasted fish, and platters of tempura. Their golden crunch, a promise of something new. Lisa stood at the tent's entrance, her kimono swapped back for her chef's whites, now a badge of honor. The shogun entered, his presence a quiet thunder. Takeda followed, his gaze unreadable, and Kenta slunk in last, his eyes burning. The feast began, each dish a gamble. Lisa's pulse raced as the shogun lifted a tempura shrimp, its batter crackling faintly. He bit down, and the tent held its breath. A slow smile spread across his face. This is sorcery," he said, his voice rich with wonder. He took another, then another, his retinue following suit. The tent erupted in murmurs of delight, samurai marveling at the crisp, airy texture. Takeda's nod was subtle but clear. She'd done it. Kenta's jaw tightened, his plans crumbling. The shogun raised a hand, silencing the room. "Fire chef," he said, his eyes locking onto Lisa's. "Your food is a bridge between worlds. You will serve me, in my court, as my chief cook. Name your reward." Lisa's breath caught. Chief cook to the shogun? It was safety, power, a life in this world. But the monk's words echoed a door through time, home, Brooklyn, her restaurant, her life. She bowed, her voice steady. "I'm honored, my lord. May I consider your offer?" The shogun's eyes narrowed, intrigued. "Bold, as expected. You have one day. Choose wisely." As the feast wound down, Lisa slipped outside, the night air cool against her flushed skin. The camp glowed with torchlight, alive with the soldiers' laughter. Hideo joined her, his presence grounding. "You did it, Fire Chef, but your heart is heavy. Why?" She sighed, staring at the stars. "There's a way home, Hideo. Maybe, but this place, you, Jiro, even Takeda are real to me now. What if I stay?" Hideo's hand brushed hers, a fleeting warmth. "You are fire. You burn bright wherever you go. Choose your path, Lisa. We will stand by you." As he walked away, the monk appeared, his robes a whisper in the dark. "The door is near," he said, pointing to a forested hill. "Tomorrow, at dawn, it opens, but beware, time demands a price." He vanished, leaving Lisa with a racing heart and a choice that could unravel everything. The feast was won, but the real battle her future loomed. Would she chase the door, risking everything for a chance at home? Or would she stay, carving a legend in this ancient land? The night offered no answers, only the promise of a dawn that would change her forever. The samurai encampment shimmered under a pre-dawn haze, its torches flickering like stars clinging to the edge of night. Lisa Harper, the Brooklyn chef who'd carved her name into the heart of 1600 Japan, stood at the camp's fringes, her breath misting in the chill. Her chef's whites, now a badge of her legend, were streaked with soot and soy, and the borrowed kimono she'd worn for the shogun's feast hung loosely over her shoulders, its silk catching the moonlight in a way that made her feel both warrior and siren. The shogun's offertoe become his chief cook dangled like a golden chain, promising safety and power. But the monk's promise of a door through time pulsed in her veins, a siren call to Brooklyn, her restaurant, her life. Dawn was hours away, and with it, a choice that could rewrite her story or end it. Lisa's auburn hair spilled free, brushing her neck as she gripped a bamboo basket of leftover tempura, a peace offering for Hideo and Jiro, who'd stood by her through every crisis. The camp was quiet, its soldiers sleeping off the shogun's feast, but tension crackled in the air. Kenta, Takeda's venomous second-in-command, hadn't shown his face since her triumph, and that silence was louder than any threat. She needed allies, answers, and timony of which she had in abundance. She found Hideo at the kitchen station, his broad shoulders hunched over a dying fire. His linen tunic clung to his sweat-slicked arms, the scars on his hands gleaming as he sharpened a knife with slow, deliberate strokes. He looked up, his dark eyes softening. "Fire, chef," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You should sleep. Dawn brings judgment." Lisa set the basket down, her lips curving into a wry smile. "Sleep?" With a shogun's offer and a time portal on the table, I'd rather cook. She leaned against the table, her kimono slipping slightly to reveal the curve of her collarbone, a move that wasn't entirely accidental. Hideo's gaze flickered, a spark of something unspoken passing between them. In this world, she'd learned to wield every weapon. She had her food, her wit, her presence. Hideo chuckled, setting the knife aside. "You are trouble, Lisa, but good trouble." He gestured to the fire. "Sit, we talk." As they shared the tempura, its crunch a fleeting comfort, Lisa poured out her dilemma. "The shogun's court is a dream job, Hideo. Power, safety, a chance to change this world with food. But home, Brooklyn, my pop-up, my life it's calling me, and that monk," he said, "the door opens at dawn, on some hill. What if it's real? What if it's a trap?" Hideo's hand brushed hers, a fleeting warmth that sent a shiver down her spine. "You are fire," he said, echoing his earlier words. "Fire chooses its path. Trust your heart, Fire Chef. But know this, you are one of us now. Stay or go, you leave a mark." Their moment was shattered by Jiro's arrival, his lanky frame bursting with urgency. His armor was askew, his gap-toothed grin replaced by a grimace. "Fire Chef, Hideo, trouble!" he panted, pointing toward the forest. "Kenta, he's gone to the hill, with men. I heard them talk of a door, of stopping you." Lisa's blood ran cold. Kenta. Of course. He'd lost his chance to ruin her at the feast, but if he knew about the time door, he could destroy her future here, or in Brooklyn. She stood, her kimono falling open slightly, the silk framing her like a warrior queen. "Then we move. Now." Hideo grabbed his knife, his face hard. "We protect you, Lisa." "Jiro, gather men you trust." Jiro nodded and sprinted off, his loyalty a beacon in the dark. Lisa's heart raced as she and Hideo armed themselves with a cleaver, him with a short blade. The hill wasn't far, but every second felt like a blade at her throat. The forest was a labyrinth of shadows, its pines whispering secrets as they ran. Lisa's sneakers, battered relics of her old life, sank into the moss, and her kimono caught on branches, tearing to reveal flashes of her legs, a stark contrast to the samurai world around her. Hideo moved like a panther, his tunic stretched taut across his back, his breath steady despite the pace. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice a tether in the chaos. They reached the hill as the first light of dawn bled into the sky, a golden thread, stitching earth to heaven. At its crest stood a stone shrine, its weathered torii gate glowing faintly, as if kissed by something not of this world. The air hummed, a low vibration that raised the hairs on Lisa's neck. The door. It was real, but Kenta was there, flanked by 6 armored men, their katanas drawn. His crimson tassels swayed as he turned, his smirk a blade of its own. "Fire, Chef," he sneered, his English dripping with malice. "You think you can leave? This door, this magistrate is not yours. You've poisoned this camp with your foreign ways. I end you here." Lisa's grip tightened on her cleaver, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. Kenta, you're scared. Scared of change, of me. Step aside and no one gets hurt. Kenta laughed, a harsh bark. Bold words for a dead woman. He raised his sword, and his men advanced, their blades glinting like fangs. Lisa's heart pounded. She was no fighter, but she'd survived Brooklyn's toughest kitchens. She'd survive this. Hideo stepped forward, his blade raised. You face us both, Kenta, and you will fall. The air crackled as the fight erupted, steel clashing in a deadly dance. Hideo was a whirlwind, his movements precise, but Kenta's men were relentless. Lisa ducked a swinging blade, her cleaver parrying clumsily but effectively. She fought with instinct, her chef's precision guiding her strikes, each move a recipe for survival. Jiro and 3 soldiers burst from the trees, their shouts a rallying cry. The tide turned, Kenta's men faltering under the combined assault. Lisa's eyes locked on the shrine, the Tory's glow pulsing brighter, a heartbeat of light. The door was opening, and time was slipping away. She dodged a thrust from Kenta, her kimono tearing further, the silk fluttering like a battle flag. "Hideo!" she shouted. "The door!" Hideo glanced at her, his face a mask of resolve. "Go, Lisa. We hold them." He parried Kenta's strike, their blades locking in a shower of sparks. Jiro fought at his side, his gap-toothed grin fierce as he downed a foe. Lisa hesitated, her heart tearing. Leave them? After all they'd done? Kenta broke free, lunging for her. You stay, or you die. His sword arced, and Lisa dove, rolling toward the shrine. The glow enveloped her, a warmth that felt like home coffee shops, neon lights, the hum of Brooklyn. But Hideo's shout pulled her back. "Lisa, choose!" She scrambled to her feet, her cleaver flashing as she blocked Kenta's next strike. The impact jarred her arms, but she held, her eyes blazing. "I'm not done here, Kenta." With a twist, she disarmed him, her cleaver at his throat. His men froze, Jiro and Hideo closing in. Kenta's smirk vanished, replaced by fear. "Yield," Lisa growled. "Or I carve you like sashimi." Kenta dropped to his knees, defeated. The soldiers bound him, Jiro's grin returning. "Fire, chef. You fight like a demon." Hideo's hand found her shoulder, his touch grounding her. "You chose to stay," he said, his voice soft but heavy. Lisa's gaze flicked to the shrine. The glow was fading, the door closing. Her chance at Brooklyn slipped away, but the camp Hideo, Jiro, even Takeda felt like hers now. "For now," she said, her voice a mix of resolve and longing. "But I need answers." As dawn broke, the monk appeared, his robes a whisper against the grass. "Fire, chef," he said, his eyes glinting with secrets. "The door closes, but others exist. Your path is yours to forge. Seek the mountain shrine far north. There, time may bend again." Lisa's heart leapt. Another door? Another chance? But the monk's next words chilled her. "Beware, for each crossing demands a price. What will you sacrifice, Fire Chef?" He vanished, leaving her with more questions than answers. The camp stirred, soldiers greeting the dawn with renewed vigor. Takeda emerged, his gaze sharp as he took in Kenta's defeat. "Fire, Chef," he said, his voice carrying a rare warmth. "You've earned your place. The Shogun awaits your answer. What say you?" Lisa stood tall, her torn kimono and chef's whites a testament to her journey. "I stay, my lord, for now, but I have business to attend." Her eyes flicked north, toward the mountain the monk had named. The shogun's court, the camp, her allies, they were her world, but the promise of another door burned bright. As she walked back to the kitchen, Hideo at her side, Jiro's laughter ringing out, Lisa felt the weight of her choice. She'd fought, loved, and survived in this ancient land, but the story wasn't over. A new adventure waited, one that could lead her homier deeper into the heart of this world. The camp buzzed with her legend, but the north called, and with it, secrets that could unravel everything. What lies beyond the mountain shrine? Will Lisa find her way back to Brooklyn? Or will Japan claim her forever? The answers are out there, waiting in the shadows of time. Stay tuned to my channel for the next chapter of Fire Chef's saga. Her boldest dish yet is still to come.